So everyone, some people are starting to pop on here. I'm sure we got some folks on looking on Facebook too. So if you don't know these esteemed individuals, we got Tucker Merrihew. He is a baller down in Portland. Him and I actually got started in business around the same time, 2002-ish. And he has been hustling down in Portland. And are you in other markets or just Portland?
No, I had desires of going to Bend in 2011, which in hindsight I should have to some extent, but just in Portland. So that's where we're at.
Hustling down in the Portland area for many, many of years. Lucky to have him on. Darryl, dude, you got 20 plus years in the business, slanging real estate.
Absolutely.
Mostly in the Portland area.
Mainly Portland markets.
Just a few thousand transactions. That's nothing to scoff at here or there. And just a couple, no big deal. And you're all over the place. I saw that you're licensed in Washington and Oregon, Nevada. Was it Hawaii too?
Yep, Hawaii also.
How's that work? Just remotely, kind of.
Actually, in Kauai, I forced myself to go over there for those.
I really forced yourself, yeah. Sarcasm, yeah.
Oh man.
A lot of my business is by referral, so the gradual move to other states has just been repeat clients who say, "Hey, we don't want to form new relationships. We like what you do. Will you get licensed in this state? Come with us." And it's hard to say no to those kind of people and those kind of friendships and relationships. So, makes it fun. You get to see different things in different places. And, the internet's a great tool these days for doing things just about anywhere.
That's amazing.
How is it selling? I mean, is it, how you go to the coast, right? And like here in Oregon, like the coast is from what I've seen and experienced, a very tight knit real estate community, right? Like if you're not in the MLS they're, they want to sell to each other and keep the money in there. Is it like that when you go to like Kauai and sell that? I mean, is it a very tight knit community that it's hard to kind of penetrate to be welcomed, let's say?
Definitely a little bit different. Like here in Oregon, I basically have gotten the MLS access for Lincoln County and all the different coast cities, so we do have full access there. Same with like the Central Oregon, we got the MLS CO, so we have full access all over Eastern Oregon. Just like, Salem, same deal, WVMLS. So when you go up to Washington, it's the same way. Everything from Spokane has one, Seattle has one, South Washington has one. Hawaii is the same way, but they group it by islands. And so, just depends on where you're going to do your business. You get your MLS access for whatever islands you're going to work on. And right now I got access in Kauai and Kona, which is good, but Kauai is my favorite spot to be over there. Love the beaches there, so hard to not want to do a few transactions if you can.
I had in this lovely office here. I used to run my mortgage company out of here back in the day, and a gal that worked for me was my processor and kind of office manager. I think she was engaged to my best friend at one point, so I hired her because she was engaged to him, right? But her family. The important part of the story. Her family lived on Kauai like for generations, and they had this beach house there that was sandwiched right in between. I don't know, is it Bill Gates or one of them owns a ton of land on that island, right?
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, well, he does now too. This was pre like Facebook blowing up. This was 2000 when I went there, 2007, 2006 beginning. That's 2007. Anyway, and they owned this strip of beach with its own beach house with like your almost Corona commercial looking palm trees, leaning. It was amazing. And I got to stay at this place for like a week and a half with her and my friend. And it was the coolest thing ever. And then there was this road going into it that was like this kind of gravel, there's chickens everywhere there, right? They're all over the damn island. And so there was this road that had chickens everywhere. And it was kind of gravelly and dirt. And we were hauling in our rental car, right? Everybody has the same rental car there, and just hauling. And this guy is coming the other way, and he pulls across the road to stop us. So we stop. And he's like, "What?" And then he creeps up alongside us, and he rolls down the window, and he goes, "Livestock, brother." Man, slow the fuck down, right? But that's how he said it. So whenever I see my friend now, that's our joke. I always say livestock, brother.
Yeah.
I had a house on Maui for 3 years, and dude, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I had this local truck that was there, and it's so crazy to see the difference because like it was just a tatted, always hanging out outside. You know, it didn't have a garage or anything. You drive around and people are like throwing the shock at you all the time and letting you through. And you know, you show up in a Jeep or like a one of like the rental Camaros or something like that, and there's no shotguns coming your way, and they ain't letting you through.
Yeah. They don't love you.
It is very much a tight knit community.
That it is.
Oh man. Well, fellas, thanks for coming out and spending the time today. I know both of you guys are busy, crushing it. So I always appreciate taking the time and to share a little bit of info. We got a lot to cover. I got a lot of questions for you guys. I want to really kind of focus on what you guys are seeing and where things are going, and what really the kind of opportunities are in the overall Portland market. But before that, I kind of want to get some, get to know you questions. And I think the first one, Darryl, is, dude, your office. Like, what do you got going on back there? That looks pretty strong. Like,
Well, I work from home, so I stepped outside the office to sit in the bar. So we're in the bar right now. So this is not office attire, but it is where I come half the time for happy hour.
Nice, the bar. I like it. I don't have a bar in my house. What? Oh, dude. Okay, so
what's the picture of the dude like hanging back?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, but
That's me in the middle. A few of my cronies that work with me. So
Okay.
we had a little photo shoot, and we needed some new headshots and stuff. So we had a little fun with it. We've wanted to use that at awards ceremonies, but then feel like it's a little over the top to put it out there. So this is a rare glimpse of it, other than when you come to join me for drinks.
It is now public. We're taking it worldwide. So us in Washington, we haven't really been able, at least not in Western Washington, we haven't been able to go to a restaurant yet. Have you guys been to a restaurant yet since things have been opening back up? And if you did, where did you go? What was like your first choice?
I haven't really gone out to eat too much. Things have been pretty closed down, but there's a lot of to-go food still. I love a good meal off the Traeger. So we've been cooking a lot at home, and a lot of different meat variations, and just cooking things up, smoking good food. And it's been actually really nice. So I used to frequent restaurants a lot, go out to eat a lot, but it's been nice to just kind of stay at home and soak it up. When your life is always busy, this quarantine, it's almost like a dream come true for a minute.
For a minute.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, I got work to do.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Tucker?
Well, I tried to go to Jimmy John's yesterday, but they were closed. I was looking forward to a Jimmy John's sandwich. They haven't opened back up yet, apparently. But I did get Thai food on the way home last night from golfing with Ryan. So that was good. But I haven't actually sat in a restaurant and like done the whole, order with a waiter, waitress thing. I haven't had that experience yet on the since this whole Corona thing started. So
are you excited about it? Or are you scared about it?
I want to go have sushi, man. I haven't had sushi since this whole thing started, and I'm a big sushi fan. And I did see there's a place, I think it's Sushi Hana by my house, and they said they're open. So I got to go there, but I think maybe they sit you like every fourth seat or something, But yeah, I haven't had sushi since this whole thing started. So that would be, I'm excited for that.
Admittedly, I haven't.
Rolls the other night. Fresh lobster. Come on, Tucker.
Dang.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
You can do it, man. Get the kids involved.
Yeah.
You don't want my kids involved in anything. Trust me. Yeah.
Well, if they're down with sushi, then that's helpful. My wife still carries around those little like trainer chopstick things in her purse.
Oh yeah.
Like the bottomless purse of random things that kids need.
Wait, They have training chopsticks?
Yeah.
Yeah. They have it's like this little plastic thing. It's like, it's probably like that big. It's like a little like rectangle. You put the chopstick in it and then just like doop, doop, doop.
The things you learn, huh?
Yeah,
I gotta
was
look
very
that up.
technical
Yeah.
too.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
All right, guys, we're jacking around a little too much here. Okay, so just quick reintro. We got some folks here. If you do have some questions to this Q&A, I'm gonna start with some questions later later near the tail end, where we are gonna get to as many questions as you can. So if you do ask a question, please ask those questions in the Q&A box. There is a Q&A box and there is a chat. You ask questions, they might get lost in the chat. If for some reason we have someone who's rude and inconsiderate, we will just remove you. So just don't be a dick. Be a nice person. Could be worse. And if you are calling in from your phone, your video, or not your video, but you're automatically muted. So if you do come up at the end of the time, you have to unmute yourself and do those. Anyway, there's 2 people in the background that will be able to help you if you are brave enough to come and ask us a question in person. Please do. It's fun, it's interactive, and yeah, and hopefully we'll have a good time.
And Fred's a lot nicer than he comes off. So,
Sometimes, only sometimes.
Depends
Okay,
on who
so
you're dealing with.
what's that?
Depends on who you're dealing with, right?
We've had some interesting ones, that's for sure.
We have.
Yes, we have. Okay, my name is Fred Rea, founder of Rain City Capital, a local hard money lender, and a random dude with a laptop and headphones that like to ask questions of people that really know what the hell they're doing. Today we have 2 amazing folks. We got Darryl Bodle, a veteran to the Portland area and the real estate industry in general. Apparently he's doing transactions all over the world, it seems like. But 3,000 plus transaction closed, and a lot of it all by referral, and tons of it investor business. I mean, I know a lot of our clients have sold houses with you a bunch of times. So Darryl, thanks for coming on. Wealth of knowledge. Hopefully we can get a bunch of stuff in. And Tucker, dude, you're out there like crazy. I feel like you're like novice crony over here trying to put a little podcast or whatever this thing on. So I bow down to you and the real deals. But you're also a hefty real estate investor and wholesaler who has done a whole bunch of transactions in the greater Portland area. So, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, and let's get into this thing.
let's do it.
Portland, I love this market. I have loved it for a long period of time. In Washington, the real estate market, if your home is priced right, it is flying off the market. What's the market doing right now in Portland, and what are people thinking and feeling, at least on the retail side?
Let's hear it, Darryl.
Okay. very, very similar instance, especially on the lower price points, the entry level stuff. It's really hard. You're seeing multiple offers. You're seeing people going over list price, sometimes by tens of thousands even today. We hadn't seen that for a little while, but it's coming back strong, especially in the lower price points. As you creep up into the higher price points, the lending industry has really tightened up that jumbo loan sector a lot. And so that's hurt things that are a little bit higher in price. Your $1 million listing probably isn't going to fly off the shelf. But stuff, 650 and under is still moving pretty good. If you've got something under 4, expect it to be gone quick.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing the same thing. We've had a couple sales in the last month that we've kind of been the tail of those 2 ends of the spectrum that Darryl's kind of describing. One was a $600,000 list. It ended up selling for $615,000, right? So it got bid over. One was $1.1 million list, and we ended up selling for, I think, $65,000 under that, right? So we knowingly took a little bit of a haircut. That upper price point, it's just a little softer, not across the board, but I will say in the more recently gentrified pockets with higher finance type buyers versus like a historically just wealthier area, it's a little softer. So we were in one of those areas that was recently gentrified. Price points were getting pushed. We were at the top of that price range. And so we felt some softness there. And so it was still a successful project for us, but we definitely felt the Corona effect, which basically is a financing effect too, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I mean, is it predominantly financing that is kind of driving that part of it, or do you kind of feel like it's it's a lack of buyers in that market? Like, what's kind of the driving force of the $1 million plus type stuff?
I mean, I'm curious what Darryl has to say, but I personally think after speaking with a lot of lenders and having been in the lending business myself, I mean, the number of buyers are dictated by the number of people that can be approved for the lending, right? And so if you're in the world of jumbo these days, you have your down payment, and then they also require 12 months of reserves that generally can't be in any sort of retirement account. We're talking liquid cash. So although you may have willing buyers, not all of them may fit inside that box of being able to get that loan. And so ultimately that cuts down on the number of people who can actually buy your house.
Got it.
Yeah, it's definitely been a combination of things. You see people who have had their jobs furloughed, so, they get disqualified. In addition to that, you see lenders coming up with new requirements, things like USDA, overnight, they'll have somebody approved with one credit score. The next day they bump it up 20 points, which disqualifies somebody. There's also things like what Tucker mentioned that, even in the lower price spectrums, they're wanting, months of reserves that they didn't want, a few months ago. And then as far as the jumbo stuff, a lot of lenders just said, hey, we're not doing it. And they might have had people ready to close on houses. And if they didn't have docs out, they pulled the fundings. And so, definitely a little bit different market, definitely still people that do it, but the requirements are different these days.
Yeah, it's like 700 plus credit score and $1 million down, and all sorts of stuff like that. But
yeah, or 720 credit score. So yeah,
got it.
But I think there's still at least from my experience and what I'm seeing. I mean, and you've probably seen this too, Darryl. But the last, let's call it 2 weeks, it seems like there's been significantly more activity kind of across the board. There's still some soft spots in the market, but when I kind of monitor things every day. I just use Redfin because that's my non-realtor way of doing it, where I just kind of do an overhead view of any neighborhood and I look at stuff that's on market and see if it's gone pending, and I track everything in all the pockets that we do business in. And it seems like most stuff is going pending really quick, and it's even pushing up into like the 900,000 and up. It's still going pretty quick now. So I think it's picked up. I don't know exactly why, but probably because people just can only sit on their hands for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
In my opinion, people are realizing the sky isn't falling. It's been a rough go, but you still got to live life. And I think people are getting tired of being cooped up, and they're like, look, we got to live. So they're coming back out.
Yeah. And I think people, including you, Fred, I mean, you guys in the lending business, I was a little worried about, preserving value, right? And I think for a month there was probably a lot of retail buyers that were thinking, is the sky going to fall? Am I going to buy this and it's going to be worth 10% less in 6 months? Like, maybe I'll just hold on. I personally feel like there's a lot less people that have that apprehension right now than they would have, 45 days ago.
Yeah, I agree too. But there's also like, you're dangling the carrot of the 3% 30-year fixed, or the 3.25 30-year fixed. And there's not a lot of people that are going to pass that up. Just locking in 3% money. It doesn't take a mathematician or a genius to figure out that, holy crap, like that's a good rate. And I think I should probably go buy a house now if I can.
Yeah.
So, how are, both of you guys kind of shifting your strategy in business during this, or are you at all? I think, Tucker, you said it earlier, like 45 days ago, 60 days ago, I was getting in pucker up mode. I was like cash managing everything, like making sure that it was there. And, obviously things are evolving and changing pretty quickly, but, how are you guys as investors and as agents and, helping people, how are you, kind of changing your strategies over like the last even couple of weeks?
I'll let Darryl go since I talk a lot. So, yeah.
As far as strategy goes, it's just a different market, and something that, I feel like we've done really well over the years is kind of roll with change. You can't get stuck in your ways. You've always got to see the next opportunity that's coming, because every change and every hardship creates something new. And, it wasn't more than 20 years ago when short sales weren't even a thing really. And then, after the recession in the 2000s, obviously there was a second go of short sales. So, I think this time around, it's not a industry inflicted crisis. So it's not quite the same as what it was, back in '08. This time around, we've got really low inventory. So, it's a matter of maybe going back to people who weren't ready to sell before, but you knew they were on the spectrum of selling, and letting them know what a great time it is to put their house on the market right now because of the demand by buyers.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis. For us, we pulled back, kind of like we talked about, Fred, offline, earlier in the week or whenever it was, 45 days ago, 60 days ago. I mean, I still remember, what was it, March 23rd? We all should have bought Apple stock with every dollar that we had on March 23rd, but I didn't. But I had a buddy that called me and he was like, I'm going to plow 400 grand into Apple, or that and Carnival and a bunch of other ones. And I was like, geez, dude, I get it. There's a point here to do it. I just didn't know that was the point, right? I thought that we had some more room to slide, not only in terms of the stock market, but just in terms of the general economy and ultimately the real estate market and all that. And so we pulled back at around that point, through the beginning of April, and we kind of buttoned down a little bit. We're actively looking for opportunities. We were clearing the books with the projects that we had. But since then, now fast forward to June, I mean, we're ripping and roaring again. We're looking to actively put cash to work, much more so than we were, 45 or 60 days ago. So it's kind of back to business as usual, but I'm a little bit waiting for the shoe to drop still, just because that's kind of my nature. But I don't see, like you said, I mean, we got 3% interest rates. We've got, I don't know what inventory is going to be this month, Darryl, but it sure as hell seems like we're going to be under 2, or pretty close to it. So things are moving.
A couple stats to answer that. There's a
stats. I like it.
I come prepared. No, there's a data tracking on inventory in the U.S. and from the time in which they started tracking U.S. inventory for real estate, they came out with a report this last week that it's the lowest it's been since the time that they began tracking. So inventory as a whole in the U.S. super low right now. And part of, what we had, like, say, fourth quarter last year, we were somewhere around 2 months of inventory in Portland. First quarter this year, it dropped down to like 1.8 months, super low. I mean, this is historically low inventory, and it's come up a little bit over the last 30 days back into the 2-month range. But, the big point for, I think, investors and rehabbers and builders and developers is we know the shortage is here. They put rates down. Rates aren't going back up for a while. I mean, I would highly doubt that they are going back up for a while.
I think they're going to go down.
I think they'll go down again as well. I agree with that. So, I think that from an investor standpoint, you have to gear up to have inventory available to meet the need in the next short period of time. 3 months, 6 months. I think this year is going to be a great time to bring stuff on. And a lot of people who are anticipating selling their homes, who haven't put them on the market now because they're going to do home renovations instead, or they're going to wait until the virus is gone, it opens a huge opportunity for guys like Tucker or any other, rehab or remodel or developer, because you're putting out new construction, vacant homes, and you're meeting a high demand with low rates. So you're going to be able to hopefully maximize your returns by selling stuff at a great price right now. And those who sit on their hands for the last few months, or who sit on their hands still the next few months, I think are going to be the guys who are wishing they had inventory to sell come July, August, September.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings up an interesting question. A big part of what Rain City finances. I mean, we finance real estate investors, right? But there's finding deals. Finding deals is very much an art. and a science and difficult, especially if you're not finding a lot of willing sellers too, right? So, and I think Tucker, you do a lot of this stuff as well. From wholesale opportunities or finding sellers in general. What are some of the things that you're doing to go out and find those people, and what are you saying to them at this point? How you getting them to let you in the house to actually to take a few pictures or talk them into selling in general? Like, where are you guys finding your inventory to sell?
I mean, we do a kind of a combination of things. We do a lot of like relationship leveraging, right? I just know a lot of people from being in the business a long time, a lot of which are, realtors that bring us opportunities. But we also do a lot of direct mail. We do a lot of outbound marketing, and we target specific properties and types of property. In the last, let's call it 60-day window, that first 30 days, people were much more apprehensive to contact us and have us in their house. It almost seemed like the phones went very, very quiet because I told, you and Darryl earlier, like vacant homes they're at an extreme premium right now, but they were even at more of a premium then because those that had anybody in them, they weren't calling because everybody was just hunkered down and kind of scared. Over the last, let's call it 2 weeks, our phones have lit up a lot more. People are kind of loosening up. They're calling. And, I've been on, I don't know, 4 or 5 appointments this week, looking at new opportunities. And I had one appointment where they required that I wear a mask and gloves to come in the house, but that's because they had a tenant in there that was requiring it. Anybody that I've gone to see that it's their house and there isn't a tenant in between, it's been kind of normal. Like you give the Corona elbow bump or the fist bump, and that's kind of how you greet and leave. But it's
Corona 5.
Yeah. But I feel like it's getting back to normal in that sense. I will agree with Darryl that inventory is tight, whether it be on the retail side, you're seeing that specifically more around the median price point, more so than any other. But on the investment side, vacant houses are at an extreme premium. And I would say finding deals right now, probably as hard as it's been, honestly, in the last couple of years, even though when we went into this, I thought it was going to get substantially easier because I thought a lot of people would kind of flee the business. It would kind of rattle some cages. People would step back, money would go to the sideline. I didn't really think about the fact that there'd be a major constraint on supply that's happening as well. But now you got people that are, some people have kind of fled the market because of what's required. You guys lend a lot of money. There's higher down payment requirements. There's more liquidity needed in order to do investment type deals. And some people can't meet that. Some people obviously can. But I think many people are coming back to the market if they can, and they're trying to find these opportunities, they're few and far between right now, especially as you get closer into Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Dang. What about you, Darryl?
Hopefully that was insightful for somebody.
That's not good news for me.
Yeah. No,
Come on, Tucker, get it together. Let's go.
Yeah. We'll find you a few deals, Tucker.
Yeah. Well, we're fine. I'm just talking in general.
I know.
Yeah, get working, Darryl. I need some deals. Yeah.
So one more thing I'll throw out is that according to NAR, Portland right now is the top 10 housing market for millennials during the pandemic. Kind of another neat bit of information as far as low inventory. We've had a lot of referrals for first-time home buyers now, like clients who they suggest it's time for their kids to buy something, maybe get out of their apartment, kind of an exodus from multifamily living or high density living. People starting to buy houses. They want to have a yard, their own garden. And, in case COVID-19 makes a resurgence, they might not want to be in a densely populated area.
Yeah, for sure. And just so everybody knows, the NAR is the National Association of Realtors. Huh. So what are you telling your investor clients right now on and how are you digging up deals for clients right now, Darryl?
It's definitely been interesting because stuff has been harder to get. Are fighting for stuff, sometimes paying a little bit more. People are a little more apprehensive, but there still are opportunities out there. And as you see inventory climb a little bit this last month, you start to recognize that stuff is coming on. I think that, stuff that you have coming on the market now is not necessarily inventory that someone purchased during coronavirus over the last 90 months or not 90 days, but it's stuff that people might already had in their pipeline. So I think that if people don't start getting some inventory on, we might even have a continued shortage even going through summer, just because, Tucker, like you said, you worked on clearing out your pipeline over the last 90 days. We certainly did the same, and you changed gears. You weren't maybe so focused on the new stuff, but more what you had going. And I think that's going to, really affect a lot of people moving forward. But as far as coming up with deals, I think you got to show up every day. It doesn't matter what's going on out there in the world. If you decide that you're not going to show up, you're not going to find a deal for sure. So if you're out there every day and you're still working the phones and you're still working the leads, there's definitely going to be opportunity, and it just depends on how hard you want to work for it.
Yeah, and what you want to pay for it. I mean, we had
Sure.
2 this week so far that there was the we can buy it price for sure, but it made me a little bit uncomfortable. It seemed like a push, but it just depends on what your capital bandwidth is, what's your pipeline looks like as to whether or not people will pay that. But there hasn't been like I thought there would be a much greater amount of opportunities to buy stuff at a bigger discount than there is. I thought there would be much more of that. And I'm not seeing, as a whole, I'm not seeing that nearly as much as I previously thought.
Yeah.
The low rates, the low inventory really affects it.
Yeah.
I was hoping that for sure, but such is life. So there's one of the things that I'm just curious about in general, and what have you guys been seeing construction wise? Have you seen prices go up or down? In Washington, construction got shut down for a little bit, but stuff was kind of happening, and now there's like this whole way that we need to deal with construction and what needs to be on site and what doesn't, et cetera. How has construction been affected, and how is it kind of affecting your projects right now, if at all?
So initially, I was super excited because I thought for sure we were going to drive some labor costs down, right? And we had guys that were, for the last 6 years, we have to call repeatedly, like, we're on the schedule. Yes, we're on the schedule. You're going to show up. Yes, yes, yes. So, that babysitting of grown men that happens as your kind of project management type position of construction. Well, then all of a sudden, for like 2 weeks straight, we had those same subs calling us saying, what you got coming up? What you got coming up? I'll do it for whatever. Right. And so I was thinking, okay, our cost of construction is going to start going down, especially our excavation, because those costs have gone through the friggin' roof over the last 3 years. Excavators just charge a fortune. And so I was like thinking, all right, our dollars per foot on what we're building stuff for, we'll be able to push that down. So if there's any value that gives back, maybe we'll even be able to get back more in our cost of construction versus what the market gives back and, the true value of the product on a cost per square foot level or dollars per square foot level. And now what I'm seeing is that everybody's busy as hell. And so that hopeful decrease in cost of construction, I don't think it's going to be there moving forward. I know guys they're hiring people back now. Our painter, he laid some people off going into this. Now he's so booked because he can't get the people back. I mean, I don't want to rabbit hole into why, but he can't get them to come back, right? And he's got more work than he can service. So
extra $600 a week.
Yeah, that'll do it. So he can't get these people back. So, he's not going to do jobs at a discount because he's only going to do the, try and maximize his money for the time he has and the people he has. So I'm not seeing a real discount in the cost of construction right now at this moment in time.
And in Oregon, people haven't been as limited on construction. I think the biggest problem was the city of Portland, closing down and then working remotely. So there was a slowdown in getting permits turned out and inspections. But as soon as they figured that out, it seemed to stay pretty on track. So, I mean, as far as new construction and development, I haven't really seen a slowdown in the production side. And even stuff that had been on the market maybe for a while and not selling has seemed to actually sell better during coronavirus. So, I mean, we've seen stuff that inventory we might have sat on for a while actually get good offers and sell and close during this time. So it hasn't been terrible in that aspect.
Yeah, I heard the same. I mean, when I was playing golf yesterday with Ryan and another fine fella. He was like, I've had stuff on the market for 60 days and now I'm getting full price offers on it, which
Yeah.
is right. And now all of a sudden, so
Yeah.
Yeah. And like they're just removing contingencies, even though it's been on the market for 45 days or whatever.
right.
Like the slim pickings is, kind of driving a little bit of craziness.
Yeah. Permitting is
Yeah.
a little slow though. We'll be starting a house that looks over the lake being Lake Oswego. It'll probably be, I don't know. It was one of those that I hit the brakes on going into this. I was like, do we really want to start a $3 million build out here? And for a month there, I was like, I don't know that we do, but now we're back on track with it. But we've been trying to push the permits through this whole time regardless. And so the permitting is a little slow because most of the cities are kind of still working remotely with their people. So it's just, the process is still a little clanky.
Well, yeah. And I mean, pretty much any municipality you walk into, like none of their facilities are big enough at all, and like they can't socially distance anywhere in those buildings. It doesn't matter if it's somewhere in Washington or Oregon or whatever. You walk into the city and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot of people in here. So that's kind of what we've seen too. Is, our local municipality is there, kind of working at like 65, maybe 75% of their capacity, just because they can't all be there. They're still attempting to serve the public, but they can't really like have meetings and whatnot like they used to. So definitely a lack of productivity that I've seen across the board. And that's not the first time I've heard that. It's weird how one little pandemic will affect so many different things in such different ways, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna bring a few. I think we have a few takers on the
We got a lot of questions
on some of the live stuff too. So, and I think we've covered some of the questions. But there's a couple. Well, one I forgot about, but we'll let Sleeping Dogs lie. But one thing that I always like to pick people's brains on, and it just gives an idea of what people are thinking right now. What are the opportunities that you guys are really focusing on over the next 3 to 18 months, and just specifically your guys' business, right? Like where do you think that you're going to make the most money and crush it the most? And Darryl, we do have some real estate agents on here too, so I'm sure they would love to pick your brain from that perspective.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as far as, where you devote your time, I think is client management. I think you stay in touch with the people you work with, you keep them educated on how the market's changing and where the advantages and disadvantages are. I think that, both active clients and past clients, I think everybody's kind of nervous and curious and they want information. And so, over the last few months, and I think even moving forward, you take some time to communicate with people and let them know that things are doing okay. Maybe help people think about refinancing if they're going to stay for a while. And if they've thought about selling in the past, that maybe now is a great time. So I think a lot of personal contact and touching base with people, I think is going to be pretty key moving forward.
Got it. What about you, Tucker? What's
we're kind of
I don't want to need the trade secrets or anything.
No. It's, I mean, I'm fine talking about whatever, but we're narrowing our focus. We've been buying from Gladstone, Milwaukee, Southeast, Southwest, Westland, Lake Oswego. It's been a pretty broad, I mean, for a lot of house buying companies or investment companies, that's not that big of an area, but for us, it's sizable given the size of our operation. We're going to narrow that focus moving into the rest of this year and probably all of 2021. We're leaving this lovely paneling here in a week. And a buddy of mine bought a building in downtown Lake Oswego, and he's leasing us kind of the rooftop top floor of the building. And so we're going to kind of put our office location where we do most of our projects, which is Lake Oswego. So we're going to narrow our focus, and we're going to do mainly just projects in Lake Oswego and some maybe in Westland for the remainder of this year and into 2021. And by doing that, it kind of allows us to be a little more potent with the marketing that we're doing in a very, I won't say tight quarters, but tight compared to where we have been marketing. And so we're just going to kind of addition by subtraction. We're going to kind of focus in, and we're going to, we have a complete inventory list of every house in all of Lake Oswego that should sell to a builder or an investor. And we're going to get to know every single one of those people, and we'll buy some and other guys will buy some, but that's going to be our strategy for the, immediate future.
So if you're going into Lake O, the Rain City office is not that far away, but more importantly, you're drinking Bud Light right now. So this probably, I don't necessarily know if this is for you, if you're a wine guy, but the Oregon Wine Reserve. You guys ever been there?
No.
It's a private little club. You keep all your wine there in like a cool little locker, and they have this little spot where you can go and drink wine.
Oh, it's right on State Street.
Yeah. Yep. Dude, that place is awesome.
There's a lot of drunk people stumbling out of there, I'll tell you what.
I have been one of those people. Unfortunately, I don't drive out of there. But
yeah, I've noticed I said stumbling out of there. Not driving.
Yeah, dude, you should definitely, entertain clients. Hey, when I come down, I have a few bottles of wine. I'll bring some and I'll stash them in your spot.
All right. So. Well, my house is about 5 minutes from there, so there you go.
Oh, even better. And then I can just.
You're not driving anyway. You're walking down.
We can drink wine and then go babysit your kids.
There we go. Nobody call child services, please. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a bunch of questions. So I think that we'll just get a little early and see if we can bring some people up. I think we got Leah. Hi, Leah.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
I love the hat.
I love it too.
Woo! I love how you probably have never worn it until today, but we'll take it.
No, I wear it all the time. I have some pictures
really?
in it. I love it.
That
Okay, so you guys ready for a question?
Born
Yes.
ready.
Okay, so I've had a bit of an issue moving some wholesale deals in Washington, and this is a good one for Rain City because this is an opportunity for you all to talk about, some of that criteria, or if you're loosening up or if you're tightening up, or even Tucker, is he having trouble wholesaling some of his deals, or is some of his students having a hard time wholesaling deals? Because what has happened that has been concerning to me is that when the pandemic started, I had some of the best lenders in the business in Oregon and Washington fail on a transaction, just wash their hands of it. And with me, investing a lot of money in my marketing and whatnot, I want to make sure that if I'm taking the time and spending the money to bring the deals in, that I definitely have some lenders out there that can indeed close these transactions. So I'm really wanting to get a feel from the whole panel about this as well, what's happening like maybe the last month, because this was April. I did move 2 deals, one in Tacoma and one in Snohomish, to a hedge fund in April. So I did wholesale 2 transactions. And I'll wrap it up here in just a second. But, I'm back to maybe closing a few transactions myself if I have a buyer that flubs up, or if their lender, clusters the transaction, I can go ahead and slam dunk a deal myself if I have to. So, yeah, that's what I want to know.
So the question is, and if I'm hearing you right, just so I can kind of get a quick synopsis, is are there buyers out there that want to buy deals, and is there financing that is able to finance the transactions? Is that about right?
That's one of the questions. The other one is how hard is it for some of the guys on the panel to move their wholesale deals? Have they noticed an extra layer of struggle or extra hard to get those deals moved?
We've seen a couple instances where people were buying stuff, and there was a period of time there where a lot of lenders, yanked fundings for investors. So, I know that wasn't encouraged. There you go. So I know that was a thing, but, there still were other lenders. And in some cases, sometimes people will be understanding if you explain to them, hey, this isn't just me, this is the whole market right now. And maybe they give you a little grace, a little extra time to close. In a couple cases, we had to cut a couple things loose, but then go back at them again and ended up getting better deals after the deal fell apart. So, I mean, again, I think it's a matter of sometimes looking at the opportunity and maybe trying to take a different approach. I mean, do you feel like you could have cut some of those deals loose and maybe gone back at them a different way a week or two later and picked them up for less?
I did. And in fact, that's why I got one of them moved, because we got a price reduction of like over 40 grand. I did move both projects. I moved both of them, but they were steals. They were really good deals. The hard part for me is the concern is the tightening up of the hard money lenders, because there's always cash buyers out there, but there's more there's more investors that like hard money or that work with hard money, like myself. And when I close a deal, I close with hard money. And so when I'm wholesaling, I like what you said though, because this is a great time for a beat down, because sellers.
It's called a Corona cut. Okay. Not a beat down.
A beat down, man. I don't want a beat down.
It's always a great time for a beatdown. Yeah.
Well,
there's your soundbite snippet for this show. Right?
It's time for a beatdown.
From a woman at that.
How
do you like?
Just take your Rain City hat off before you beat somebody up, please. I don't need any of that.
we got like we have a COVID addendum. So it builds in a lot of flexibility on closing, on, really loosey-goosey close date. So we have a close date, but due to COVID-19 and potential issues, I mean, we had one seller that had to shelter in place. He could not do anything.
Yeah,
he had to shelter in place. So we
So-
got to have those COVID addendums.
Yeah, Leah, I'm gonna take this one. And sorry, I don't mean to steal the limelight for a second, but so every day that goes on, everybody's feeling better and better about the market. And pretty much this entire conversation has been around how we can't find enough deals and how prices are getting driven up because of that. So I think April was a very different month. And, April was, 6 weeks ago, right? The time has changed very quickly. And, I know that there is a ton more liquidity in the market now than there was before. So I was one of those guys. I yanked everything. I dusted off my 2008 playbook. I went into the garage and dusted it off and picked it up. And I was like, well, that's what I do. But I turned everything back on, and I'm slowly kind of starting to inch back in. And I'm not the only one that's doing it. There are other lenders that are starting to get back in. There are other lenders that are realizing, like, holy crap, like it really isn't that bad. And they're watching the real estate market kind of cruise up. So if anything, I would be very bullish on, what you do. And if you're wholesaling transactions, there's far more buyers and far more lenders out there, and the number is growing exponentially. So, I would go and conquer, because the opportunities are there. And there's a ton of buyers and a ton of cash that was sitting on the sidelines, including me, that didn't know what the hell was going to go on. And that time has since passed.
Sorry to interrupt. I've seen a few comments, both, from you guys talking and then also in the chat about, the likeness of 2008 to today. But, it's very different. So I have a hard time with anyone who wants to relate the two, because 2008 was within the industry. That was something that was building and blew. This is a black swan. This is something outside the market, and the market was already strong. So, two very different approaches to what's going on now versus what was going on then.
And I agree with you too, Darryl. It's totally different. Leah, thank you so much for coming up and being brave to ask the question. You're awesome. And just so you know, you got some fans on your COVID addendum. And I'm sure the wholesalers in here are like, ooh, COVID addendum. I remember back in the day when I used to wholesale, and people would have some like cool stuff. I'm like, ooh, what am I doing? I want that. So maybe you're willing to share.
It's called a get out of jail free card. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's like when you figured out and/or signs. I was like, what is and? Oh, no. Anyway, so I think the next person we got coming up is Michael. What is up, Michael? How you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing pretty good. Sorry, my first question was just a factual one. And so while I was thinking about it, I thought I'd just ask each of you something. My first question was just, Darryl, medium price point in Portland. What's that for you guys?
Median price point in Portland. Jeez. Well, I'm going to have to dig for a second. Let me get back to you in 1 second. Go on with the next
The
question.
median
Not a
price
problem.
point has
The
increased
second part of that question was medium price point in Portland, and what's your median days on market right now? What are you guys-
415,000 is our median price point.
Okay.
Up from 399,600 a year ago, and our days on market right now for April it's in the rears. Keep in mind, it's 44 days, down from 61.
Wow. Okay. Cool. And then I guess Tucker, my question for you was spec and developments. Good idea right now?
Significantly better idea right now than it was 45 days ago. I mean, today we just bought, tomorrow we're buying a $600,000 piece of dirt. We're going to build out probably a $2.3 million home on it. So we wouldn't be doing that if we didn't think it was a saleable, end asset. So.
Sure. Cool. And then Jeff, for you, are you optimistic or pessimistic about money starting to loosen up from the hard money? You just had Leah sort of really on that.
Who's Jeff?
Sorry, Fred. Jeff was the one on there. I'm sorry, Fred. I was just.
I'm just messing with you, man.
Appreciate it, Fred.
It's not the first time I've been called Jeff or Brad. I feel like I just don't look like a Fred, and people just whatever. There's more liquidity coming in the market. Like I was just telling Leah that there's things are opening up. What was really kind of interesting about at least what Rain City went through and what a lot of our questions or a lot of our competitors went through is everybody got really dependent on a secondary market, meaning that they originate and then they sell their loans. And this goes all the way to like the big dogs, like the lending homes of the world. They still sell a bunch of their loans. So anyway, I digress. The secondary market just died immediately because again, everybody was thinking 2008. Like they have this 2008 playbook, and they're like, "Oh, here's the 6 things that I need to go and do." And slowly there was a kind of this weird liquidity crunch for a while, and right now it is lessening and lessening. Like, I think that jumbo pricing will probably be back within a month. Jumbo just kind of went away, but as we're experiencing the real estate market not necessarily going anywhere, like Alt-A lenders are starting, or not Alt-A, that's the old non-QM, non-qualified mortgage, non-Fannie, Freddie, FHA and VA, anything that's aside from that, but they're still financing a primary residence or something, is non-QM. That died immediately overnight, and then it's just kind of slowly inching its way back because guess what? The real estate market isn't getting crushed. It's going the opposite way.
Do you think that'll be back in full swing by the end of the year, Fred? What's your prediction?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think it'll be before then. I mean,
Okay.
We're seeing liquidity come in way earlier than so many people expected. And it's not, it won't, it's going to take a while to get back to, and it's like a fix and flip loan at 6%. That was happening 4 months ago. That probably won't happen until, at some point next year when there's some sort of vaccine and they feel kind of better about it. But, there is, it's going to get better and the rates are going to come down and things are going to get back to that again, because again, this is an asset that by and large is performing, save for the Northeast. And, your risk adjusted returns on a capital basis are very strong. So I'll stop nerding out. The mortgage market is going to get better across the board. And with the Fed propping things up for however, with unlimited dollars, that's why I fully believe that, interest rates 30-year, 15-year, your normal rates are just going to keep kind of going down, at least throughout the rest of this year.
And Fred, do you feel like once that starts happening and the secondary market comes back, do you think hard money will start to get easier again?
Yep, it already is. It's happening.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you hearing me. Thanks for doing this panel, Fred. This was awesome. Appreciate it again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. So, do we have any other takers? We only got 5 minutes left, so I want to be cognizant of time. I don't necessarily know if we have anybody else that's going to come up. So, the one question I've seen that's coming up, and I think this is really kind of an interesting one. For everybody that doesn't know, the state of Oregon has rent control across the state. And like in Washington here, I have 2 tenants that aren't paying rent, and they just said, well, you can't evict anybody until August now, and they haven't paid me rent since February. So what is the rental environment like in Oregon, and how is kind of the crazy rental laws in Oregon affecting rentals and your businesses and whatnot? Because then, I mean, I know a bunch of people that own property down there. I'm curious how things are kind of hanging out.
I mean, I don't have a huge portfolio, but that I have, all are paying. Fortunately, one, I had turnover during this whole thing. So like end of March they were out, right? So that was I actually thought about selling, and I was like, oh, 1031 it into something, maybe some dirt that I could develop later or something like that, because I didn't know how long this whole non-pay of rent thing was going to go on. And so I originally thought that I was going to do that. Then I thought, well, to do that, I got to spruce up a few things. So while I do that, I'll put it up for rent. And I ended up renting it to a couple of nurses. And so it re-rented and they're paying. So, but I did, with the rent control thing, we're forced every time we re-rent it to ratchet out rent. And then for those that renew, we ratchet it up as much as we possibly can, the 9% or whatever it is, given the market will absorb it, to kind of combat so we don't get behind the 8 ball. But I'm in a good position, but I know people that do have problem tenants. I know people that went to the tenants, like you've got a couple tenants that aren't paying. I know people that went to them and said, hey, I'll give you a 20% rent cut if you make sure you pay. Right. And so that's kind of spurred them to make sure that they keep paying. So I don't know, man, rental market, there is a lot of money fleeing from here. I'll tell you that in terms of rentals, there has been for a while. But I don't know. It just comes with more headache really at the end of the day.
Yeah. And we have a lot of, listings for new construction stuff. New construction multifamily has a 15-year rent exemption from the rent control rules. So it's a little easier to deal with.
It does. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So that's a good thing if you're buying something that's newer versus something older, in addition to warranties that you get from builders. But we have noticed, whereas there's super low inventory with single family, the multifamily stuff is kind of hanging around. We had a few of those that were pending, and buyers, they kind of pulled back a little bit with the coronavirus stuff and these furloughs on the rents. People just got nervous, but I do think that that'll all come back here in due time. You just got to be a little more competitive, and in fact, one of the biggest questions I get when people call with interest is, can you tell me if all the tenants are current on their rent? And that's going to be the big factor, is they want to buy into a place where they know people aren't, just forcing them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. I think I just got lucky. You know what I did? I offered them free rent for a month. I was like, don't even pay me. Don't worry about it. Just pay me start next month.
Mm-hmm.
Crickets. Nothing. It's like, dang, I thought it was being nice. Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah.
Give it in. So take a mile.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, and come August, give me a couple months, see what happens then. Okay, so one last question that we had, and we just got a couple of minutes, might go over a couple, so sorry for taking your guys' time, but the one question I think is kind of interesting too. So there's a lot of mortgage deferrals and forbearances where people are going to have to pay a bill at the end of this thing. How do you think that's going to affect, or do you think it's going to have really an effect at all on our market?
I think it could. I think immediately the effect is going to be that, they've changed the guidelines for that a couple times throughout the course of the last few months. And at first they were willing to give it. And then rules came out, advising people that if they do that, they might not have the ability to refinance or get a new purchase mortgage down the line, or at least for a certain amount of time. So now it says, maybe if you repay what you haven't paid, you'll regain your opportunity. But on the flip side, I think a lot of people who haven't paid are going to struggle to catch up if it is due to job loss or job furlough. And so I think you will see some inventory or some distressed opportunity. The problem is with housing prices going up, oftentimes they can kind of absorb that, and people can still sell and get out without becoming fully distressed.
Yeah, there's a lot of equity out there. I'm watching it like Darryl is, if they allow people to amortize the forbearance amount over the life of the loan or spread out what's due over a extended period of time, I don't know that it's going to have a big impact other than just maybe potentially not being able to refinance if they hold it against them moving forward. But if that lump sum money is due, it's going to be a problem. But I feel like they're going to figure out a way to prevent that by the time we get there.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at the number. I thought that there would be a much larger number, with unemployment being 40-some million people, and there's only 7 million modifications, maybe 6 million modifications that were done. I thought that was kind of definitely a pretty big difference between the two. But
I guess the next stat you should look up is of those 40 million unemployed, how many were homeowners versus renters, and then
I think that's the correlation right there. Like, there you can start doing the math and see all the people that lost their job were the homeowners, and it's a smaller percentage than I would have ever anticipated.
Yeah.
Well, it's 5. We made it. We did it. Tucker, Darryl, thank you guys so much for coming on here, answering questions, recording, and just being willing to share. It's super helpful for everybody. I know whenever I do this stuff, I always get a little nugget of something. So thank you guys so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Go take over the world and crush it. And for all of y'all that are still on here, we do this every couple weeks. You can come check us out, and hopefully we add value to your life and your real estate biz too. Anyway, thank you guys. You guys have a good afternoon. Cheers. And,
thanks for having us. Much appreciated.
Go for the Corona cut.
Yeah, that's right. Corona cut. No beat downs. Corona cut.
No beat downs. Just the Corona cut. All right, guys. You take care.
Good seeing you.
See you guys.
Have a good one.